everybody. I am going over your bias work assignments. I think it's just a really important topic that we discuss about how bias really influences all areas of our lives, in our own, and how we relate to other people, and just how it influences us in different ways. So we're going to dig into this. We're going to look at some basic definitions, find some examples, kind of dig into what are some biases we might have. Everybody has some, but it's just being aware of that and then using it, the knowledge of that, to try to prevent discrimination and prejudices that we're actually showing to people. And so digging into those pieces. So we have two different things we're doing. We're doing the family life bias work. That's just really just like the kind of the notes pieces and reflection and learning information on here. And then we'll kind of stop after you finish that portion, and you'll work on your larger bias assignment that you're going to be working on and have your individual one, which you'll submit but also post to a discussion board. And then after you do that, you'll look at other people's on here that they've created, add a little bit of information that what you got out of it, a little small reflection at the end of that, and then you'd submit this one as well. So I'm just going to do a little walkthrough for each of these. Again, just watch what you need to watch. If you totally get things, then you can just skip ahead to there's a point that you know you have a question. Okay, so getting started, you want to have just this bias notes assignment, I think it's called. But it's family life bias work. I kind of have it labeled different stuff. Sorry about that. And then you'll get on the types of bias. So you're going to go on those notes that you should have the link in Schoology. And then we're going to just kind of go through. First is just a basic definition. Like, what is it? There's kind of more than one definition you can do. A tendency to believe that some people, ideas, etc. are better or worse than others. That usually results in treating some people unfairly. Not always, though. We can check our bias and not actually act on that. So that's not a piece it has to be. Or it actually can be something, a strong interest in something or ability to do something. So sometimes their student has a strong bias towards the arts, meaning they're good at it or a good ability to it. Okay, so it's not always like something we would consider a bad thing, but we want to look at what it could be. So all of these are different examples. So when you're looking at the definition, you can plug, this is the one, the number one is the one we're looking for, so you can plug that in. And then these are all different examples of bias. In particular with the definition we're the most looking at. Okay, so that just goes right there. Nice and easy. And we have what we call the self-serving bias. So it's people's tendency to attribute positive events to their own character, but negative events to external factors. It's a common type of cognitive bias. That's just, most people have it, right? So what is this really saying? So that's a definition, but what is it really saying? These are examples. So you get an A for an essay. You attribute it to your own awesomeness. Like, yes, I did that. It was because I did great. Okay, negative event side is you get a C on an essay and you attribute it to your professor not having explained it like what they wanted well enough. So that's saying, oh, I did bad because of someone else. Okay, so that's like an example. Those are examples of self-serving bias. So you have definition, you have examples right there that you can kind of put into that. It's also possible that it can get like switched around to depression and self-serving bias. Sometimes people that are depressed or have low self-esteem actually flip it. So meaning they like would change it to say, oh, I did well just because I got lucky. And then if they did bad, they would be like, oh, I suck and that's why I did bad. Okay, so it's this opposite of the self-serving bias. It's like a flipped way. So that can be common too. Antidotes for self-serving bias. So how can we kind of help with that? Mindful awareness can help. Learning cognitive biases, and just notice yourself doing them, and then just be like, oh yeah, again, I shouldn't do that, and then correct, and kind of do different self-talk. Self-compassion is just hugely important, that you deserve to have all the good things in your life happen, and kind of just looking at those things. Also taking that self-awareness, putting some self-awareness, like if you would do normally that negative event side, that you blame someone else, just kind of looking, you know, were you paying attention to the professor, or did you do your notes? Sometimes it's on us. Sometimes it is the other person. A lot of times it's a little bit of both. So looking at that self-compassion, mindfulness, these are just spend some time how you would talk to yourself and treat yourself. Self-compassion needs to include 3 components. So that's what I would like you to be looking at this next part. It says how to practice self-compassion to prevent a self-serving or a reverse bias. So one of those 2. So these are these 3 ways. So you're going to look at those and you're not doing a definition. That's why this is just open, right? You're just going to tell me what are things that you think would be best for you out of this information, or if you have other ideas that you could do to help with that. Okay? Kind of what you need the most work on. As we all are works in progress. Okay, next we have stereotypes. So looking again, doing different definitions. Exaggerated belief, image, or distorted truth about a person or a group. Allows usually little or no differences in social variation. Can be based on mass media, reputations passed on by other people. Can be positive or negative towards other people. A lot of times we think of them as negative. They can be positive, but sometimes the positive stereotypes aren't great either. Okay, and there's all kinds of different stereotypes. I can have a stereotype that I'm just trying to think. There's so many of them right now. But I could, you do one that people say that blondes are dumb, right? That's not accurate. That's a stereotype. Okay, there's all kinds of racial stereotypes, sexist stereotypes, all kinds of things. Okay, but it's like an exaggerated belief or something that's not true. Okay, it could be true for some people. There could be a person that is blonde and not very smart, but that doesn't mean all are, right? And then there's plenty of people that are not blonde that maybe are not as smart. So thinking of those examples for you. And then looking at prejudice, they really tie closely together. A prejudice is an opinion, prejudgment, or attitude about a group or its individual members. It can be positive or negative, but it's more of an individual opinion that is usually, we consider this one even more so harmful. Okay, they're almost used interchangeably, but it can be about an individual member. A little bit more. Okay, again, look very much the same. It's okay if you have really similar definitions and examples for that. Okay, because they are very, very similar. Looking at prejudice often accompanied by ignorance, fear, or hatred. Having or showing a dislike or trust that's derived from prejudice is bigoted, and that is where it's shown, right? Bigotry is usually something that's more obvious. Prejudice are formed by complex psychological process that begins with attachment close to a circle of acquaintances or in-groups, such as family. And prejudice often the aim is out-groups, so people that aren't like us in certain ways, we have a tendency to be more prejudiced against. But again, prejudice does not mean you show it externally. This is where discrimination comes in. Discrimination is behavior, the actual behavior that treats people unequally or equitably because of their group memberships. So it can range from slights, meaning just microaggressions or things like that, to hate crimes. Begins usually with the negative stereotypes and prejudice. So this is where you can, for discrimination, put that bare definition in there, and there's more room for that. Okay, and then the next part is this first number 1. It says in the space below, create a brainstorming of all the discrimination you've seen or experienced. This can be something that happened to you, something you witnessed, or something you didn't or didn't realize at the time. And it says with your group members, but you'll just do it yourself because you're online. But you just type in. You just start typing in. It brings it down here for me, but yours will probably move down farther when you're typing other stuff. But this could be anybody treating you differently, saying something inappropriate. I have examples usually more about being a woman, especially as I was younger, You know, like I've had people say like women should be in the kitchen making a sandwich, like, and saying it as a joke, but that's not really funny, right? So like prejudice or bias and racist, sexist things, even if they're said as jokes, they're not funny. So you could write something down like that. Even positive stereotypes. I get a lot of, an example would be like the model minority kind of myth about Asian people being extremely smart or good at math. That's a prejudice, or it can be discrimination that is verbalized to people. So even though a lot of times people, it's like considered a positive, it's still not like helpful, and it's saying something good about a whole big group, but it doesn't always apply to the whole big group, right? So there's all kinds of things that you can put in there, and some of them can be much bigger. Like it can be more than that. It could be someone maybe following you around because they think that you're going to steal something based on like a discrimination for race. It could be all kinds of things. There's all kinds of terrible things that I think happen to a lot of people. And it can be to you, or it could be something you've seen or heard about or witnessed. So kind of create a little list for that. And then the next step, and hopefully this is kind of a way to work some stuff out. I know it's digging into some of the past for people, and that can be really painful. If you're having a really hard time with this one, just let me know, and it can be something you move on from faster. But next is taking the Harvard implicit bias test. So I have this on here. It's also a video on it. You probably want to watch the video. Can be really helpful for understanding bias and how it works. So I'd watch that and then take the implicit bias test. And you can choose a topic. It can relate to sexuality, race, or gender. There's lots of options. And then, so you click on here. I'll just kind of do a little small walkthrough to get you started. This is just privacy data collection. And then once you're ready, see these little blue words on the bottom. It says, I wish to proceed. You click on that. And then here's all the options of what you can do. So if I wanted to do gender and science, I could do that. I'd like you to stick with something that's a little less specific. You could do race, sexuality, gender, and in relation to that. This is a welcome on here. So to the race task. You'll complete this. You'll ask to sort pictures and words into groups as fast as you can. In addition, there will be some questions about your beliefs, attitudes, and opinions, and some standard demographic questions. Should take about 10 minutes. Okay, and at the end you get your results. So on here, and then like I'm gonna just click birth year, I'm old, I'm gonna scroll down quite a bit. Okay, so then I hit submit, and then this gives you statements, right? And you have to, it's kind of like you have to pick except for the middle. So if you click equality, do how you really feel so you get a really good response. Okay, so it's like how warm or cold do you feel towards Black people. So it's giving you all of these different pieces. So I'm going to put somewhat warm. Notice I'm putting 7 for both because I'm like, sometimes people, right? Sex assigned at birth. So, and then what's nice is they have a gender identity, differentiation. And then you like checking your ethnicity. And you keep going. You'll obviously fill this out just differently. If you've never done this before, fill that out. And I'm going to do a couple times because I've done this a few times. Political identity, I'm going to decline on that one because I don't want to share that with everybody. Not necessarily appropriate. Religious affiliation, I'm going to decline those. And then primary symptom. You feel free to fill those out though. I just am not going to do that for the purpose of this assignment. What's it called? Oops, I'm going to decline on that one. Doesn't really matter. Okay, this one, master's degree, you're going to fill out just, it's okay if you put high school diploma. I'm okay with that even though you haven't finished that. Like full-time, if you're in, I'm in education, but if you're a student, you can put different. And this, okay. So I'm just gonna, like I can do all this, but we're gonna spend way too much time watching me do that. Okay, so next you're going to use the E and I keys on your computer to categorize items into groups as fast as you can. So you're going for speed here, right? These are the 4 groups and the items that belong to each. So good means laugh, cheerful, happy, beautiful, triumph, pleasure, joy, terrific. Bad, failure, annoy, yuck, gross, horrible, awful, dirty, detest. And then they have faces associated with black people, so people that are black and people that are white. So, and you're going to basically be matching them up and just listen to the instructions. Please put left finger on the E key for the items that belong into the white for white people. Put a right finger on an I key for items that belong to black people. And the items will appear one at a time. If you make a mistake, a red X will appear. It's okay. Plus another key. It doesn't matter. Okay? So you just push the space bar when you're ready. So we have I, and then E for white people, I for black. Okay? And this is just categorizing how you're doing this. Okay? And so I'm just pushing my I and E keys associated with the different people. And then it'll eventually do another one. There we go. So this is part 2. And then it's going to have you do the E key for bad, I key for good. Okay, I'm hoping this makes sense. And again, you go as fast as you can. Okay, so I'm going to leave this. It'll bring you to different stages. And again, depending on which one you choose on here, it'll ask you different things. So what it's trying to do, it's trying to see if you have any biases. And so how you answer and like how quickly and all of those different things in different spots, it's trying to assess that. Okay, at the end, it'll give you some results for your test, and then you'll just tell me what they are. And then you take this with a grain of salt. Okay, what I want you to be thinking about, oh, and here's the video. Okay, so you can watch the video at the end there. But how do you feel about your results? Like if you get something that's really surprising to you and it makes you uncomfortable, that's okay. But try to just use it as a moment to reflect, not as like, well, this isn't accurate. Use it as a moment to be like, oh, what could this mean? Why maybe could I have this? What can I use to think about this? If you don't think it's correct, be like, I don't think it's correct, but think about it a little bit. Or if you're like, yeah, this is totally accurate for me and you feel good about it, then put that. Whatever it is for you. Okay, and then write this video, write a reflection about you and your thoughts. Again, anything goes and related to bias. You can talk about your frustrations with other people's bias. You can talk about biases that you might have, like anything that works for you. 4, describe how you identify with your ethnic, racial, gender, sexual orientation, or other aspect of your identity that you felt there is a hidden or not so hidden sometimes, like really overt bias expressed by others. Or describe someone else. Like if you're like, ooh, I'm just so not comfortable with these heavy topics with myself, you can talk about someone else that you know have gone through something. Or if you just can't think of something within yourself, go ahead and do that. Okay, so that's kind of that first piece. And then from your description above, identify, we're just going back to that ecological system, experiences that have occurred. I have the notes in there. So it's just identify which areas of the ecological system those experiences have occurred. So when you're looking at number 4, if you felt discrimination for your sex or gender, like where is it? So if I go back to here, I'm looking back at the ecological systems. I'm going to scroll down. So remember, that's these pieces. So I can have the individual, microsystem. So if you had like gender discrimination, racial discrimination by school, that would be in the mesosystem. Okay, if it was like the community health services or like workplace or things like that, that would be more in the exosystem. Okay, so you can kind of be, if it's in multiple of them, it might be more than one as well. Okay, so that's just help you identify like where that might be. So it's tying just the stuff we talked about before into there. And then the next part is a website on microaggressions. So it's just talking about it. I think it's just a really big thing to be talking about. It's talking about 12 microaggressions you hear on a daily basis. And microaggressions are like stereotypes that are expressed, right? But we call them microaggressions because they're not like people don't consider them as big of a deal, even though, man, it can really add up and cause trauma. So looking at what some of these are. So this, like, they're just showing like different pictures and sayings on there. So this says, no, where are you really from? So like a lot of times people are like, assume someone that ethnically or racially looks different, that they're not from the US, which is absurd, right? And so it's, you know, wondering what someone's ethnicity is different than saying what they're, like, where are you from? Okay, so it's just going over this, and you just kind of scroll. And then what are you? Same thing, human. It's not a what. So I think just scroll through, look at the 21 ones real quick. And then you can just have you ever experienced or witnessed microaggression, make your own picture and put it here, or just explain it. Pictures are going to be really hard to do. You could find like a meme, or you could find a separate image, which would be fine too. But don't use one of the images from here. And then over time, how can these microaggressions impact people that are the target of them, and how can it impact their lives and their families? And that you could speak up to your own self if you've experienced microaggressions, or just imagine what it would be like. What do you think? And so I also have like microaggressions. There's article, there's all kinds of things. I have a partner with another person, but we don't do that. We're skipping that kind of piece on for this one. There's also different slides, hidden biases, self-serving bias. So you can kind of look at different pieces with that if you would like, but you don't need to. Okay, and then just thinking number 8 is, what can you do to keep implicit bias in mind? Like, what can you do to prevent discrimination through your own implicit bias? And how might you address it when you see it, others having a bias? Okay, so that's most of this. Then you're going to sign up for a topic on Schoology and then follow the instructions on the bias presentation. Okay, so your next step is to sign up for a bias assignment topic. So you're going to click on here and open it up, and then you'll see you should be able to edit this as well. So you'll see a bias assignment sign up, you'll see topics, and then person 1, person 2. That just means I have 2 classes of the same class, so I just want to make sure everybody has the option to do that. I normally have you separate by hour, but you all take this class in different hours. So if something interests you, I have just some common examples on here. However, if you notice on the bottom, I have other topic approved by Ms. Wheeler. If you think of something, I'm all for it. I just want to make sure it's actually an example of bias, right? Showing up discrimination bias. So some of these are super common, like example, poor maternal outcomes for Black women, or it can be people that are female born. But the outcomes are the mortality rate, like the maternal death rate, is so much higher for Black women when they're having babies. And it's not just related to socioeconomic income and prenatal or anything like that. It's bias and discrimination in the workforce. And some places are more on top of it than others, but it's something that's a really big concern. And so that's one. School to prison pipeline, transgender discrimination regarding bathroom usage, pay gap for women compared to men, pay gap for different people of color compared to white people. And choose either Black or African American or Latino, indigenous populations. You can separate it out with many different ones. We have physical ableism. So like ableism, if we haven't talked about that, but it's like discrimination of people that are disabled. And so we usually consider it ableism now. We try to stay away from the disabled. It's usually considered differently abled. But it's physical ones. We have weight discrimination. Again, could be in the workforce or stuff too. Ageism and career, meaning for people that are older, finding careers, or they might be treated differently in careers. We have class or socioeconomic discrimination. Mental health ableism. So for people that might be discriminated against for mental health concerns or diagnoses, or sometimes this might even be more physical ableism too, but sometimes they're more like silent. You can't see it, okay? There's so many more. There's definitely way more items dealing with the LGBTQ plus population that could be discrimination. This was just a quick list I made to get you started for people that are having a hard time coming up with topics. But I really invite you to just quick shoot me an email. Can I do this topic? I'll respond. If yes, then you just like plop it in here. You can take this out and just plop it in, or do a new line and put your name in there and do that, because there's really good things that I think are really helpful to learn about for other people. And that's part of it. We're going to do this assignment and then we're going to be sharing out. Okay. So once you've signed up, then what I want you to do is you're going to go to, I have too many things open. You're going to go into Schoology. So if I bring Schoology over here, I go back into week 1, and then the bias assignment is right here. And then I click on that, and it's this piece. So you each have your own copy. It's your own assignment, right? So you go in instructions, you're going to find a video, an article, a podcast, or a blog that deals with bias, racism, sexism, ageism, homophobia, transphobia, all of those things, right, that we talked about. You're going to sign up for one. You're going to watch and or read it, change the information, or add on to the next slides to fit your information. So in that, you're going to be summarizing information in your own Google slide, video, or other approved presentation method. We're just going to stick with this unless you have a different idea. Then you can definitely email me about that. You're going to include information, summarizing, explain in everyday life. So like, what are some examples really specific to this? Impacts to the family system. So that's going back to like the family system notes. Just kind of look back at those really quick to help jog your memory of how that could be affecting other people in the family and as a whole. And then how you and others can use this information in different areas of your life. Or like how to change it. Like what can you do to change stuff? Or just really keep it in mind so that you can help protect yourself or advocate for others. Okay, and then you need at least 4 pictures if doing the Google slide with typed info. And so I have it. Just like you're going to change this right here to whatever it is your article, podcast, or video is. You're going to share the link for it. And then you're going to give me this a big long summary right here. Okay, this should be pretty big. Okay, the next part, examples in everyday life, impact to families. I have little spots for you. So you're going to give me information there. And then this is a big part. How are you and or others, can they use this information in your life? And how can you advocate for others? What are like advocates for change that you can do? Or just awareness that you can bring about these different topics. And then once you do this, you're done with the assignment, but you have to submit it. Okay, so your next piece, once you've finished your assignment, so your bias assignment, I'm going to kind of put these in different order, is you're going back to you need to post it to the discussion board, right? So an example of this is if I was going to take this and post it to my discussion board, I have to change it, and I made a thing, but you go to the share, and then you change it, so then instead of restricted, you need to make sure it says ic622.org, or you could do anyone with the link. You could put that, and then just leave them viewer. Don't change it to edit. You just want them to be able to look at it. Hit this copy link, and then hit done. And then you go on here, you go to discussion board post, and then I would post it, and like this. Okay? So, and you can, I don't even know, oh, you could do it like this too. I could put Wheeler, bias assignment, and I could link it in nice if I wanted. Oops, so I link it in there. Oops, I want to put it in here. Okay, and then I would hit attach. I'm not going to do it because you don't need to see this floating all around, right? But that's how you would do it. I also, if later you need to look back on it, it's on your assignment. Too many things open. It's right here. So instructions on how to view your change settings. But right here, it's just how to make like a little copy. So I have it kind of step by step showing what to do. You go up, you can go to make a copy or the share settings. So you can just go share settings. Oh, sorry, skip the make a copy. Just go on the share settings. I'll take that off for later. And then you just change this to ISD 622, then hit copy the link and then done. So follow like the little numbers on here as well. Okay, once you finish with that, now you're done with your assignment. You have to wait a little bit if like you're the first person that did it, but you go on here, you click on someone else's link under the discussion post. You're going to look at 3 people's, and as you look at 3 people's, you're just going to put name, title of the article, what's the topic, what's the short description from their summary. You're going to do a shorter description than they have, and then how can you use this information. So you're just doing some little snippets. So you're seeing more than just the topic you talked about. Part of this is I want you to have different topics that you're going to be thinking about. And then the very last piece is other than your own, which one did you find the most meaningful and why? Just a quick like reflection on that piece. Okay, so all of this it's into week 1 and week 2. So make sure you're paying attention to like the different due dates and all of that stuff, whatever class you have. At whatever point you're taking this class. Please ask me questions so I can help you. I know this video tutorial is really long, and I don't always mean, like, I don't want you to feel like you have to watch all of them. If it helps you, do it. But you can always just kind of scroll to different spots to see where you need help. Okay? So this is like this week and then next week, and then we will move on and start talking about self, which I think are kind of some easier topics and to dig in and really interesting stuff too. Even though I think it's all interesting. We'd have some richer discussions if we were in person, but I'm hoping that you're still getting stuff out of this and learning about topics that you maybe didn't think of before. So have a great day, have a great week, and I will have another video for you later next week. Bye-bye.